Hi, and welcome everyone to Whole Soul School and Foundation's Fireside Chats for January 2022. I'm Marie Mohler, and I am an author, intuitive life coach, and a co-host of these Fireside Chats. I am here today with Lacy Frazer, my co-host, who is a clinical psychologist by training and a practicing life coach and consciousness educator today. I want to welcome all of our listeners tuning into this conversation today with us. Our mission here at Whole Soul School and Foundation is to increase self-awareness, personal empowerment, conscious communication, transformation, and freedom in people worldwide through our Good Vibes broadcasting and consciousness teachings. We believe that these conversations are the education and that they serve to support daily personal evolution and expansion within the incredible rising heroes and heroic souls who seek positive change, authenticity, and greater meaning in their lives. If you are inspired by our Good Vibes broadcasts and wish to pay it forward, we invite you to make a donation directly through our website at wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org. You can also support our mission and work here by visiting our shop on bonfire.com and purchasing apparel there. We are excited to share with our listeners that our updates on our website are now live. You can enjoy all of our podcasts and video broadcasts there, our blog articles, newsletters, and access our Bonfire shop through our website as well. That was a big project for us over the course of 2021, getting all of those updates and the newness. You're going to feel just kind of a new energy in our website, along with all of the things that you've grown to love about Whole Soul School and Foundation over time. And we are pleased to share that it is ready for people to peruse and enjoy.
And I just want to jump in here, Marie. You haven't welcomed me yet, but I'm going to say, hey!
I was getting there.
I know, it's wonderful to be here in January 2022, and I just wanted to jump in and point people to the our shop on our website, which takes you to Bonfire. I know you've already said it, but it's some pretty cool stuff. We've got some neat designs. We've sweatshirts and t-shirts and things like that. Very cozy clothes during the winter.
Exactly. What I love about what we're creating on our Bonfire shop are inspirational messages. It's kind of an energy. It's a wearable frequency is what I call it.
Yes.
Right? So the gift that you give when you shop our apparel, not only do you support Whole Soul School and Foundation, you support our team, you support the mission and the vision, but you also get the beautiful benefit of wearing kind of a higher energy to higher frequency to good vibration, because we are Good Vibes broadcasting. You get to wear that in your day or give the gift of that apparel to someone else. So, Lacy, I'm so glad you jumped in. I am going to properly welcome you in just a few moments. So we are excited about the changes and the newness and the upgrades we've just shared on the website and in the shop.
Yes.
And we have more designs that will keep coming, right? So it's not static, it's ever changing, like we are as this rising hero within. Okay, and I also, Lacy, want to give a shout out to our amazing donors who support us and our vision and mission so we can continue to grow and create these new offerings. So we thank all of our donors and supporters for your generous donations. We really appreciate you and your support. And I just want to give a big welcome to everybody joining us today. And now I want to welcome you, Lacy, for joining me in these Fireside Chats for January 2022. Thank you.
It's wonderful to be here, and I just can't even get over the fact that it's 2022. I just don't know what to say about that.
I know time has been kind of strange for all of us, I think, in the last couple of years. And we are back again today then for another Fireside Chats to kick off more conversations throughout 2022 about our favorite topic and pathway for transformation, which of course is the rising hero's journey. And this month, we're going to be exploring the next phase of the hero's journey, which is the reward. And so, Lacy, why don't you take it away like you like to do and orient us to some of what we're going to be talking about today?
So For listeners tuning in for the first time, we've spent the last many months podcasting about the hero's journey based on Joseph Campbell's work. I, in the past, have taken a lot of time to review each stage of the hero's journey, and I'm not going to do that today because we're far enough into the journey that we could take the entire podcast just reviewing the journey.
Right.
Right? So, but I think what I do want to say is that when you introduced us, you talked about the hero's journey of transformation as a topic, but it's even more than a topic. The journey of human transformation is the journey of the human, right? It's everything. And so this isn't just like almost like a specific topic. We are really talking about the internal transformation, the rising hero within, and that is why we incarnate as a human. So everything we talk about, to me, whether is part of this hero's journey, the rising hero within, the journey of personal transformation. So I just wanted to kind of put an exclamation point on that. And so the last month in December, we talked about the stage of the hero's journey called the Ordeal. And it really was, at some level, an initial climax in our own journey. It's really, we had gone through a lot of tests and experiences and made friends and made enemies and gathered skills and gathered wisdom. And in the phase of the ordeal, we really conquered some of our greatest fears. It was one of the biggest battles and experiences that the hero can have, right? And when the hero moves through that ordeal, they basically learn some incredible information about themselves and the world, and it really transforms them. And that transformation, often the wisdom that they gain, informs every decision that going forward, right, in life.
Right.
Now, in the actual journey of the hero, this isn't the be-all and end-all. I mean, it's called the reward. So one might think, okay, I'm gonna climb that mountain, or I'm gonna go in that cave, I'm gonna fight that dragon, whatever it is, and I'm gonna get the reward that I came to get. In fact, this stage is also called seizing the sword.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that we've journeyed, and who was it? King Arthur journeyed to find the sword in the stone.
Nobody had been able to pull the sword out of the stone, but he had done the journeying he needed to do to be the one that had achieved that level of growth, I guess, and transformation, and the ability to remove the sword from the stone.
Right. And so if you imagine up until this point, let's just take King Arthur or Frodo or whoever we want to use, but we'll use King Arthur. He has been on an immense journey to get his way to the sword, which is in the stone. Right. And then I always picture that like on the top of a mountain, and then he pulls out the sword, and now that's his reward at this point in the story. Right. In fact, I think you have a quote that is right here.
Right in that energy, right?
Yes.
So the best view comes after the hardest climb.
So I love that quote because that's King Arthur who climbs to the top of the mountain, who gets the sword, pulls it out, and now he's seeing, right? He's seeing in the horizon. He's seeing everything. And he probably rested for a little bit, don't you think? Once he made that climb and he got that sword, which was the reward at that time, he probably sat there and he took in the view. Right. And he processed his journey up until that point. But what we know, right, of anybody who climbs a mountain,
you got to go back down.
You got to go back down. So there's more to this hero's journey that we'll be talking about in the coming months for sure. But right now we are talking about the reward, and
maybe some of that energy that you just talked about, the kind of the basking in the glow of all that had been gleaned up to that point. There is this review or this kind of mini integration that's going on of all the marrow of what's been journeyed to this point.
Absolutely. Through the great adversity of the ordeal, right, comes the triumph of the reward at this point. So we as heroes, the rising hero within, we've confronted through the inmost cave, through the ordeal, we've confronted our greatest fear. We've possibly survived death, right? And we've learned so many valuable lessons and truly feel somewhat transformed. And at this point, we are rewarded with a prize of some kind. So in stories, the object may be symbolized as like a treasure, a sword, a token, right? Or maybe even secret knowledge or a reconciliation with a friend or our own selves. And whatever it is that we're rewarded with, it's going to help us return to our ordinary world. It's going to help us in the journey back, right? Mm-hmm. I was reading some things about the psychological symbolization. Is that a word, symbolization?
It is today.
Around the reward. So it said, when confronting our deep inner fears or challenges, we are rewarded with deep insights and breakthroughs. And this is really important because I think as we as people are working on ourselves, on the journey of self-awareness and personal transformation, some people may actively choose that without needing a massive journey. But most, as we are talking about, need a massive journey to really feel the importance of the self-reflection, right? And transformation will come. Deep insights do come. Breakthroughs, aha moments do come when we allow ourselves to face our fears, to challenge our self-doubt, right? To do this work. So this may be in the form of achieving a significant goal or inwardly having a sense of peace or reconciliation with our past or moments that have previously felt unresolved. So as a spiritual process, this may also be the realization that behind our suffering and pain lies freedom or inner peace. Okay? Right. So think about that for a minute. Yeah.
It's a very reflective stage and phase of our journey, right? We really are taking like a big deep breath after we've done all of that journeying from just living in that ordinary world to going through the feeling that call to adventure, refusing that call, meeting the mentor, right? Facing some of the tests, experiencing, allies and enemies, and really realizing who is who around us in that journey. Right? All these stages, approaching the inmost cave, right? And the ordeal. Everything that we talked about is a massive journey unto itself.
Right.
Right? So by the time we're at this stage of the reward, it is a time to take a bit of a deep, long breath. And I think there's some gratitude that we've made it this far, right? That we've done these extraordinary things, that we've experienced these, and we are on the crest of that mountain, right? And the best view comes after the hardest climb. We're having awareness of that at some level, right?
Well, I think we've in a way, we've ascended to a certain point where we can look down at our life, we can look down at this journey, and we can see it within such a broader perspective.
It is. It's a bigger picture vision. That's a lot of the language that I use and some of the other things that I do, but we need that bigger picture vision. It's all part of the journey of personal transformation, because when we're in our little ordinary world, it's like a fishbowl, but we don't know that's what we're living in until you go through this journey and you go through all these phases and stages and all these aspects of the adventure, and you realize there's a whole ocean out there, right? And we've journeyed some of that ocean. Finding Nemo is a bit of that story, right? They'd stay on this tiny little reef, and afraid of the great big ocean because it's dangerous and dark and spooky out there. But on that journey, even in that story, right? It's the hero's journey is in so many of our stories, but you traverse all those things that you once feared, and some of those things that you feared become your friends. That's also part of the journey. And some of those things are things that you do vanquish, conquer, release, let go. And then we go through this process where we're taking this deep breath, and it is a deep time of reflection. And kind of a rejuvenation too. There's sort of letting ourselves rest from all that we've been through while we take this time to integrate what we've learned so far. And the learning that becomes like a living wisdom inside is taking deeper root at this time, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just feeling that as you were saying it, that it's what we've been through so far on the hero's journey and where we are when we claim the reward at that stage. And that reward, again, may just be a sense of peace or change, recognizing or acknowledging a change inside of us. I really want to emphasize that we are changed from the inside out from this journey. I'm thinking of some friends of ours, specifically mine, who are going through such a deep, deep hero's journey, and they've been in the inmost cave, and they're in the middle of the ordeal even right now, and I'm feeling how it's changing them from the inside out, and as painful as it is, they are recognizing, and I recognize in them, that they are a changed person. And I know this of my own journey and of your journey. We were changed. We are different. We can never go back to the person we were. And right. I, frankly, my sort of advice in support of others at this stage is that you don't really want to go back to who you were, because who you are now through this at this stage is completely transformed and different. And your lens that you've been looking through the world through for however many years you've been on the earth has changed. It's shifted. And oftentimes part of the reward is seeing things so much more clearly and through a different lens as you've journeyed. So right. So this is it's a pivotal time, because it's definitely feels better than the ordeal that we just went through, right? The kind of, which may have been life or death, or just felt like life or death. Mm-hmm. We are changed at this point, and the reward is that change in a way.
That's powerful. The reward can be that change, and just being with yourself in this much more profound, kind of awake, aware way, to know, to just allow yourself to feel all that you've just been through, all that you've just grown through, even in the awareness that you've outgrown that previous version of yourself, and you are kind of reflecting on who you were before, and seeing the different moments in time you had to step up and find some almost otherworldly strength inside you to keep going.
Yes.
This otherworldly faith and this fortitude, this stamina that is built by going through it, right? And that's what makes this such a lifelong conversation, I think, for you and I, Lacy. Yes. And we have such a passion for it. I did reference it as a topic, but I know deeply that this is the marrow of our lives. This is what we are, and we are always learning and growing. And once you've been touched by the hero's journey in this way, we've talked about this before, there are other story arcs. There are other journeys and adventures that you go on, right? But that's also part of what changes in your perspective, is that you know that we're going to keep going on these journeys. We're going to keep expanding. Expansion and the change, right, becomes something that we know is part of what gives us life force. It's part of our purpose for being here. And we've grown an appreciation for that, right? In this journey, we've grown enough to know at this point, when we're in this kind of still point, or this pause, or this point of reflection in the reward phase, right? Where we're like, whoa. Like it's this moment of acknowledging all that we've grown through to this point. And also, I just wanted to acknowledge what you said, is that we have outgrown that earlier version of ourselves. And from that perspective, the best view comes after the hardest climb. That definitely illustrates that you're at some kind of summit or some pinnacle moment in your life, and you are having this bigger picture vision. You know that we will return. We are going to take the knowledge and these gifts that we have acquired, and we're going to bring them back, and we'll be talking about that, I know, in podcasts to come.
Well, and I want to just it's not only that we're bringing them back, but this new us, this new version, this new knowledge and wisdom that we've gained through this experience is going to aid us in a very different way on the journey back. Because
oh, yes, exactly. It's all, and there's a newness to it. But, also inherent in this journey is that we're going to be traveling again, the return, but as this changed, more expanded being that has more access to gifts that we never thought possible. And so the journey back is not the same road that you journeyed in. Right? Because you are changed.
Absolutely. It's like, I often use the blue tinted lenses as an example for people when they, if you were born and you had glasses were put on your face with it and it had a blue tint to it, and you live your whole life looking through blue tinted glasses, and you don't even know that you're looking through the world as that there's blue tint to it, because it's all you've ever known. But when somebody comes and takes off those glasses or helps you remove the blue tint, now you have a clarity that you never even knew was in your awareness existed, right? And you see the world completely differently. Right. And I think in a way, that's another way to talk about the reward. It's almost like the reward is when you finally take off the blue tint and you see things clearly. Doesn't mean that you're not journeying back to the ordinary world, or you may end up, in some things I've read about the hero's journey, they don't even journey back to the ordinary world. They've had such a good time on their adventure that they're going to take new paths and new adventures and never go back to their ordinary world. Right. Right? Which could even be a metaphor for the inner world, that I've changed so much and I'm a different human and I'm looking through a different lens, that there is no such thing as an ordinary world anymore. Right? So there's a lot of different ways to look at this. It's very profound, actually, as we're talking about it.
And it plays out differently for different people.
Right.
Some people, like in the tales of old, there was this kind of the hero's return. They've gone on this, mega epic journey, and they come back, and everybody in the town that they return to is in awe and enamored with their stories and the dragons they've conquered, and the challenges they faced, and that they triumphed over all these things. But you're right, some people don't actually, now in our modern day lives, that's not necessarily the formula for the path for everyone. Sometimes you go on to different lands, different places, different adventures. Right.
Because that's what the change has prompted in you. Instead of coming back to the ordinary world and bringing the wisdom and the knowledge and your transformed self to help other people there, you end up taking all of that to somewhere else, to other realms, other lands. I love that. I love that.
Right.
So just to bring us back to sort of the practical, or some examples that people can really relate to when it comes to the reward, we can talk about Luke Skywalker. We've referenced Luke and Dorothy and these heroes in our stories over the course of our podcast. But one example of the reward is when Luke rescues Princess Leia and ends up capturing the plans for the Death Star, so he's still got a big journey ahead. He's still got to destroy the Death Star.
He had a lot of other adventures to get him to that point of the rescue and the acquisition of those plans, right?
But in that stage, those plans, of the Death Star were his reward that he could then take and destroy the Death Star and Darth Vader and everything that happens after that, right? And then also in Rocky Balboa, I think about Rocky and his reward. This was really deep, and I hadn't thought about it, but his reward through these initial stages of his journey was the return of his own faith and confidence in himself, right? And he used that faith and confidence inside of himself to realize that he had the stuff to defeat Apollo Creed, right? So his reward was the faith in himself and his increased self-esteem, and that he could then go into the ring with Apollo Creed and defeat him. So that's just another example. And then, of course, our famous heroine Dorothy that we talk about all the time. Dorothy is really, her reward is knowledge. She returns from the Wicked Witch's castle with the broomstick in hand, right? And she expects the Wizard of Oz, as promised, will send her home to Kansas. But that's not meant to be, as we know, and the wizard cannot uphold his end of the bargain because when Toto pulls back the curtain, it is revealed that the wizard is actually a meek old man who manipulates the controls of a device that creates the appearance,
illusion.
Right, the illusion of the wizard. Dorothy's, her true reward is the knowledge that, and I hadn't thought about it this way, but when the wizard is revealed in that way, her reward is the knowledge that adults and authority figures are just the same as she is, and that pretensions to be powerful are sometimes fraudulent, right? And that she had the power within the whole time. So I think that there was many people probably don't think about it that way, but as the curtain is pulled back, it's almost maybe akin to as the blue tint is removed from the glasses.
Right.
As the curtain is pulled back and she sees the wizard as not this all-powerful being, but actually a human being just like herself. She really realizes there's a lot of things a lot of knowledge that she gains about human beings and human nature in that moment. But she still, as we know, has the rest of her journey to go on and has to figure out a way to get back to Kansas, right?
And what I love when you just shared those three perfect examples is that the reward can be a tangible or an intangible, right? You talked about knowledge, right? Or greater faith in oneself and our own abilities. But it can also be like the Death Star plans, right? It can be literally a blueprint or the sword of Excalibur. And what I love that we find so engaging and fascinating about this journey is that it is different for everyone. Right. All the things that show up in our journeys are different for everyone. And yet there's these common themes that are the same. So someone might say, well, I didn't get a sword. But for everyone, the reward is different. And sometimes even the reward may be obvious. And also, like you're talking about with Dorothy, that we didn't quite see it that way initially. But the knowledge she had in a way of how she was giving her power to authority figures, right? That was something that you might have to dig a little deeper in this reward, this reflection phase where you're going through this integration and you've just come through a massive experience, right?
Yeah.
And which is what the ordeal is, but all the stages leading even up to that. And that's when there's this kind of incorporation, this integration. We're going through this process of feeling the layers of ourselves in that journey. And what I love so much too about all that we're talking about, everything that we've referenced today involves a changed perspective. It involves changes in perception because of all that you've gone through. And that, I don't know, and I'm having my own sort of reward moment here in this podcast of really defining the personal transformation and change maybe a little differently than I have before. That it is so much of what characterizes the change is that shift in perception, the lenses through which we see. We can call that knowledge or wisdom or lesson learning or expansion on some level. But all of these connect. Even this quote that we've cited several times, and I'm going to say it again, the best view comes after the hardest climb. That's talking about a perspective shift, right?
100%. And I talk about it so much in my classes. I help people zoom out and look down. I help, it's the same kind of concept. I would love you to talk, Marie, a little bit about our house and what we went through here as an example of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, well, that was its own hero's journey. And of course, you don't know that you're about to be on a journey when you first get the call to adventure. So we were summoned and attracted to the house that we currently live in today. many years ago. And when we were summoned here, we were excited because we felt like a whole new chapter of our life, because that's what you feel, this call to adventure. It can feel very exciting and all this newness and something's pulling you forward. And many of us feel that call and want to step into that. And so some of us feel it with this beautiful anticipation and wanting to step into something that's new. And I think we both had that experience when we were called to this property. We'd been called to look at it many times before, and then we were summoned to actually look into buying this house and really making a life change, right? Little did we know how much our lives were going to change, right? But that's how I would say the universe works, right? It plants seeds in your path.
Breadcrumbs that you follow that you don't really sometimes know that you're even following.
Right? Exactly. And it felt like it was a big leap for us to move from where we were, and definitely like a financial step of like a perspective shift to even just, afford this new life that was calling to us. And yet there was this pull, something summoning us forward, the call to adventure, basically, right? And then very shortly after we move into this house, and I'm talking very quick, like a matter of months, we step into the hero's journey further because it's in a kind of accelerated fashion. We are on a fast track to the ordeal, right? We go very quickly.
12 months. It was 12 months because we...
From start to
into the ordeal.
Into the ordeal was 12 months. And all the things that had to shift at a very rapid rate for us, that we were really moving.
Oh, yeah.
We left the ordinary world, but we were very quickly.
Within 12 months, we were in the ordeal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's fascinating...
In this house.
Right. That had, also just months prior had been like something that was so exciting, and we were kind of pinching ourselves that this, this beautiful thing was unfolding in our lives and manifesting the way that it was. And then I think part of the ordeal, and I'm not going to get into that, and maybe that's another podcast for another day, is sometimes when you step into the adventure, those that step in willingly, that think something's exciting, there's something that goes on that grows you when what you thought you signed up for is not what you got.
Well, and I always tell people and teach people that nothing is ever what it seems. And this was an amazing example of that.
Well, correct. And so anyway, so we face this massive, massive, massive ordeal experience that we go through here that tried and tested our souls, right? That tested everything that we thought we were and that we believed in before, right? So ours was a pretty epic ordeal. And what's interesting is that because we experienced so much in this house, as we came out the other side of the ordeal, and the best view comes after the hardest climb, we're kind of in that energy of reflecting on what just happened to us and what we had survived and transcended and all of those things. Part of that process also left us with this feeling, this awareness of, oh, we need to sell this house. right? Because that's where all of that happened. And so we went on this process of, for several years, we're not meant to be happy here.
Well, how could we? Because the ordeal occurred in this space over, and I want to say, just for listeners, over a 3-year period of time. Because sometimes people say, well, how long does this phase take and that phase? Of course, it is different for everybody. But it was 12 months to get into the ordeal. The ordeal was effectively 3 years.
3.5 years, right?
3.5 years. And then at the end of that, we said,
I gotta go.
Right. Let's get out of here.
It's been fun.
Right. No, it hasn't been fun.
It hasn't really been fun.
Right.
And it felt so clear to us that we needed to transcend the whole experience and take the lessons and the knowledge. It would be like Dorothy having gone through all that she went through in The Wizard of Oz and stayed, and there were more witches waiting for her. She kind of was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, get me back to Kansas had a whole new meaning.
Right, exactly. And we kind of felt, we had this feeling of, we need to go. So here's this call to adventure that what involved buying this house, which felt like at the time one of the greatest joys of our lives, right? And then we very quickly are on the fast track, unbeknownst to ourselves, how fast and how deep and how wide we were going to go, that led us into this ordeal. And then we have this epic adventure in that ordeal process. And we come out the other side. We're kind of sitting at the top of that mountain. We've been through some of the hardest climbs of our lives. And through those new lenses, we're saying we need to go. And then in trying to leave this house behind, we're still in the adventure of that in our own ways. Even now today, we had thought that we needed to leave here to move forward in our experience. And then what we realize is that the house and being here was its reward, that it wasn't for us to sell and leave and depart, but that the house and the journey and all of it is the reward, and we are changed here. In a way, we are living examples, at least at this stage in our journey, Lacy, where we return to the ordinary world, completely different versions of ourselves. It's like timeline shifting.
And it's like it's almost like we never left the ordinary world. This is really deep in a layered kind of way.
Yes.
We actually had our entire hero's journey within the ordinary world in a way. It kind of reminds me a little bit of George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, yes.
Because he thinks he's got to go. He's got to get out of Bedford Falls, right?
Right.
He's got to move on for all these different reasons.
Right.
But he doesn't, and he has to stay, and it forces him to stay in his ordinary world, but it's within his ordinary world.
He has an epic adventure.
That he has this epic transformational adventure in who he is. Mm. Ooh, that just gave me chills.
I know, right? I hadn't looked at it through those lenses before, but as people can see in real time, the layers of our lives continue teaching us always and all the time. And you can always grow deeper and deeper if you're willing to look and have these kinds of conversations with yourself. There are always more morsels and nuggets for the journey. So I hadn't quite looked at it that way, but we had this whole epic adventure, right, within the context of an ordinary world, but we went to otherworldly, other extraordinary levels inside ourselves. Like we traveled worlds, certainly in that 3 to 5 year period of time.
Right.
And but while in the same place, kind of like you said, It's a Wonderful Life, powerful. And so people who are thinking, well, I'm not having an adventure like them, you don't know where your adventure and where this whole journey will take place for you, right? It might look like we never left this house, but we've seen, I would say, I've seen multi-dimensionally. I've done so much traveling, right? Which also was part of that reward, because I think we were in this time of reflection. It was time to go. It was time to pack our things and go to the next chapter. And we thought that meant leaving this very house. But somehow in our adventure, I think what is right and highest good for us was to transmute all the pain and suffering that the ordeal brought, which was another ordeal. It was another layer of an ordeal. While we experienced all of that in this one place, and we had the first ordeal, we really had the second ordeal to transmute all the pain and make this house a beautiful place, all that we felt it was going to be for us when we first accepted the first call. We have been on a second adventure to live out the vision and the dreams we had while here, but from a whole different lens of perspective.
Yeah, so true.
Right?
Such a deep example and experience. And I just really appreciate that. I just really appreciate how we're kind of threading all of these things together, because you really realize that the hero's journey, for people who are cerebral or intellectual or linear in their thinking, and many people are, and, it's black or white, all or nothing, I need to go from point A to point B. For those people, it may be more challenging to understand how we're talking, because we really are talking about kind of layers and expansion and viewpoints. But I encourage everybody, whether you're a linear thinker or a much more expanded or abstract thinker, to just reflect, just kind of go within and understand that everything in our life is purposeful. Every interaction is purposeful. Every decision we make is purposeful, and it's all part of this deeper journey. And kind of the last thing I want to say is, one other example might be, or one other way another person sort of talked about this particular phase is that the prize that the hero initially sought, and we could use our house as an example, as a prize that we were trying to seek at that point in our life. It was a huge prize for us in our life because it was sort of this castle that we were going to be able to move into and start a family and all of those things. But the prize the hero initially seeks actually becomes secondary to the personal transformation that he undergoes or she undergoes through the process. Right. So even, and that is exactly what happened to us. We sought this house, which was a material thing. We had no idea that the real prize was going to be the incredible personal transformation that happened with both of us and our family, through our journey.
And the freedom and the sovereignty and the empowerment that we talk about is all hallmarks of the hero's journey.
Right.
We collected all those gifts while here, right? But traveling in those incredible ways like we were. And so, can you say that one more time again?
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Well, I think if I can, it's, the prize that the hero initially seeks. So for us, it was the house. For somebody else, it might be, something financial or another material object, right? The prize that the hero initially seeks becomes secondary to the personal transformation that they undergo in the journey.
Well, and if I may, a perfect second quote that I want to share, which is exactly, I think, what you're talking about. John Ruskin says, "The highest reward for a person's toil is not what they get for it, but what they become by it."
Oh, so good. What they become by it. And then I'm going to add, and we may get into this in the latter stages that we've not gotten into yet, is it's what they've gained and how they've transformed, but they now derive greater satisfaction in serving others through their transformation, right? So the real prize, the real reward, like we've said, is the internal change. It's the internal transformation, and then it's being able to walk through the world and help others.
Share it.
Yeah,
and share it with others.
Exactly, which both you and I do,
Right?
So
it is really... I love talking about personal growth and change through the lens of layers, right? Because there's always...
Because nothing is ever what it seems.
Nothing is ever what it seems, but we also have grown to know that we're always evolving. We're always growing, and something happens inside that hero. We didn't mention, and this is another podcast for another day, but The Hobbit. The story, and Bilbo Baggins, right? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Bilbo Baggins. It sounded strange when I said it. I was like, okay. So that story is very characteristic of the hero's journey, and that probably could be its own podcast, right? But if anybody has seen that film, and I just saw it for the first time recently, it was amazing how, hobbits are little. In the world that they live in, they're pretty small creatures. And he has this little house, and he has this ordinary world that is his small hobbit life. And here comes this invitation to a great adventure. And he does all the things that you would expect in the hero's journey. It is very illustrative of the hero's journey. But what's amazing is that this small life in this ordinary world, in this little hobbit realm of experience that was his kind of fishbowl, if we would use that metaphor. And he does try and refuse this call, but yet the call calls him, and he does accept the invitation, and he goes on some extraordinary adventures, right? And then he too returns to his hobbit village, right?
The Shire.
The Shire, thank you. And is very incredibly changed. And he brings all of this back to that realm in his presence, in his essence, right? And he's expanded forevermore because of the experiences he's had. And I think that we are all in this journey to uncover these hidden gifts, these unbelievable rewards that really are waiting for all of us to discover them. And there's something inside us that knows that this journey is meant for all of us. People listening to this, even if you've had this journey, you're going to recognize some of these elements inside yourself in your own story somewhere, some way, somehow. If you haven't had quite this experience, what I can also say is that as a planet, from my lens and perspective, we are all in an epic hero's journey as a global collective right now.
100%.
Because of all that's transpired in the last couple of years for all of us. Change and that summoning to expansion has been a part of all of our experiences. And when you can step up into that journey and you can listen for where you are being called, where are you being summoned to something more? Where are you being summoned to something just a little bigger, a little different than what you've been living previously, right? We are all moving in these new ways. And I like that energy of layerings, because Bilbo Baggins does have all these layers inside him because of the journey he accepted, because of the call to adventure he engaged, right?
Right.
And I know that there are more layers to my journey yet to be uncovered and discovered, and more adventures to go on.
Right.
And when you have those lenses, instead of fearing the adventure.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Right. When you start to say, I wonder what kind of adventures I'm going to have today. And every new day for me, because my lens is changed every single day, I don't know who's going to call today. What creatures or animals or, something am I going to meet and encounter? What experiences am I going to have? Whether they're challenging and can border on painful and soul tests for me, or whether they're just these beautiful connections, these unexpected blessings in my day. It's not just like these months and years of our lives that call us into adventure. Every day is an adventure.
Absolutely.
And that also shifts for us. That's one of the rewards of the journey.
Yes.
Right? Is that you realize that it's not one adventure, but that at every moment you're living an adventure. And there's many more experiences that want to play out for you and through you. It becomes a much more joyful and exciting and enriching experience, right? Versus something that previously we never knew about, or if we knew about it, some people fear it and they try and avoid it, right? But those that go on the adventure, there's so many gems inside. And that's also a metaphor.
Well, and I'm sorry, I just have to jump in here, because those who go on the adventure, you just said it that way. And I would say that we're always in an adventure. Life is an adventure. Life is a journey. But there are many people who are almost like walking through life on autopilot or with blinders on. They don't see their life as an adventure. So that's that perspective part. Mm-hmm. But when you open up to actually what is in front of you, what is happening in your life, and you do see it as an adventure, and maybe people listening to this for the first time will start to, just by listening to other people talk about it, they will see what they're experiencing completely differently, right? So life is
maybe
always,
I am in an adventure already.
And I've never even seen it, or I never thought
it.
and I never knew it. Right. Exactly.
And so that is definitely something that we're calling people's attention to
Yes.
in these fireside
Yes.
chats, in more podcasts that we will continue to have here as we tell the story, as we reflect back to others, this hero's journey that is living inside all of us. And we are summoned to shift our lenses of perception so that we can have that best view that does come after the hardest climb, but so that also we receive these rewards by becoming the best versions of ourselves that we were always destined and designed to be.
Yes.
And so I want to thank you, Lacy, for adventuring with me today
Absolutely.
in another Fireside Chats for January 2022. And I thank our listeners for joining us as well and being in the journey with us and expanding your perceptions and awareness to know that you are always in the adventure of your life too. And it makes life a whole lot more exciting and meaningful. This is also part of the meaning that comes to the hero's journey when you know that everything in your life is perfectly unfolding and it's positioned in some way for you to grow and have all these beautiful and incredible and soul enriching and expanding experiences. So, with that said, I want to welcome people to visit us at wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org. We already referenced that there are some fun changes there, and you can enjoy things that you've seen there before that are like some favorite aspects of our website. You can see all of our podcasts and broadcasts, our blogs and other things, all of our offerings there. But you could just feel like a new energy that's really integrated. You know, Whole Soul School and Foundation is on its own hero's journey, and it is integrating unto itself. And I think the reward right now, as someone who worked deeply with our web developers, right, there is a great reward that I just have to acknowledge to myself and maybe all of our listeners today that the website is, all the upgrades.
And I think it's really important because you and I are also about the energy of gratitude and appreciation. So I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank our web designer and her team. And I also want to thank our donors. We have sustainer donors, people who donate regularly every month. And we have individual donors who donate just once. And no donation is too small. Every little bit helps. And my heart is so big right now. And I want to just thank all those people who support us, and it doesn't have to be monetarily. I mean, we have a lot of people who are cheerleading and saying, keep going. I listen every month. I've got a couple people who are kind of at my back saying, what's going on? When is this coming out? You got to get it in by the end of the month.
Right.
So, I mean, all of those people, everybody. It's a collective effort.
It's a collective effort. It's a collective village of we're all contributing so that we can share the marrow of these messages. And it is it's a village. And that's also where we know that we've achieved something special by people who have kind of caught the bug in a good way.
Yeah.
It's this energy of the hero within rising is contagious in the best kind of contagious way that we might be able to conceive of. And this is our time to rise inside ourselves and to feel the magic sprinkled into the journey amidst the hardship, right? Because it's both.
It is both.
It truly is both.
Yep.
So we have a lot of gratitude for all the beings that we co-create with and then who also are in this journey with us. And we'll be back again for another Fireside Chats in February and hopefully some additional guests and some additional podcasts as we enter more into the energies of 2022 and the hero's journeys that we will be experiencing at that time, right?
Absolutely. We're going to start to descend down the mountain on the other side.
Right.
Right in February.
Yeah. So stay with us. All right, everyone. Blessings. We'll talk to you soon.